He stood on my doorstep, smugness practically radiating off him. He just handed me a document that he thought was my final defeat. The president of the Homeowners Association, my neighbor, the man who had spent years trying to break me. He told me to read the fine print next time. So I did, and buried in that legal jargon was a single, beautiful mistake, a tiny error in a property number that would give me the power to bring his entire little empire crashing down around him. Have you ever been pushed around by someone who thought the rules didn't apply to them? Have you ever dreamed of the perfect, legal, absolutely devastating comeback? Stick around, because this is a story about betrayal, a hidden loophole, and the most satisfyingly malicious compliance I have ever executed. If you're ready for a justice story that will leave you grinning, hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. For decades, my little slice of land was my peace. I bought it cheap back when it was just open fields and a dirt track. Over the years, I saw it transform. The organized owners, a group of developers, turned the area into an exclusive, gated community. They offered to buy part of my land, and the price was too good to refuse. It funded a beautiful house. For a while, life was good, but then my mother passed. The house held too many memories. So I moved out and rented it to a wonderful family. That's when the organized owners became the HOA. And their president, let's call him the chairman, started his campaign. They wanted control. They wanted my back road to be their new sole entrance. I refused to join their club, but we made a deal. For a tiny fee, they could put their security booth, their sign, their electric boom gate, all on the very edge of my property. It was a handshake deal made permanent with a simple easement contract. For years, it worked. They mowed my lawn, paid me a pittance, and I enjoyed my quiet life an hour away. Then the incident that changed everything. My tenant's young daughter, she was terrified. Some creep lurking outside her window at night, making noises, even firing a gun. The HOA was spooked. They came to me with a solution. Join the HOA, they said. We'll give you full exemptions from all fees and rules. And we'll build a massive security wall around the entire neighborhood. A wall that will now include your property. They made it sound like a favor, a gift. They presented it as a win-win. My tenant would be safe. They'd get their gated community. My gut should have screamed, but all I saw was a scared little girl and a promise of safety. I signed their contract. I trusted their word. The wall went up. The cameras were installed. It looked impenetrable. And exactly 1 month after the final brick was laid, the trap snapped shut. A letter arrived from my tenant. A violation. His dogs were barking. He called them confused. We're exempt, he said. Their response was like a bucket of ice water. The exemptions have been revoked. Retroactively. I tore open the stack of HOA mail I'd been ignoring. My blood ran cold, then boiled. It wasn't a letter. It was in declaration of war. They were billing me for a year of backdated HOA fees I was promised I'd never owe. They were charging me for the gardening they had done. They were demanding a refund for the tiny easement payments they had made to me. They had, with the stroke of a pen, turned me from a neutral landlord into their debtors. I lawyered up. I fought, and I lost. The judge said it was perfectly legal. They had the right to revoke the exemptions. They just needed to give me 30 days' notice, which, of course, they buried in the fine print. As I walked out of that courtroom, defeated and financially bleeding, the chairman approached me. I can still see the smirk on his face, the condescending tone. He said, "You should have joined when you had the chance. You could have been a founding member. Maybe next time you'll understand what you're signing." The humiliation was a physical burn. The powerlessness was suffocating. He wasn't just winning. He was gloating. He wanted me to know I was beneath him. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by legal documents. The anger wasn't hot anymore. It was cold, sharp, focused. If he wanted me to understand what I was signing, then that's exactly what I would do. I started to read. Every clause, every subclause, every defined term. I was looking for a crack. Any crack. And I didn't have to look far. It was on the very first page. The property identification. For all their grandstanding about details, they'd made a catastrophic error. 30 years ago, I'd subdivided my land from my mother. The easement they'd signed all those years ago, it wasn't for the property with my house on it. It was for the empty, vacant plot next door. The one I'd intended to build her house on. The one that was still just a patch of grass. And the contract I just signed, the one that bound me to their tyrannical rules, they'd used that same wrong property number. The chairman, in his arrogance, had just delivered me a signed document canceling the easement on that very property. He'd handed me the key to my own revenge. The plan crystallized instantly. I would give them exactly what they demanded. Malicious compliance in its purest form. 30 days. To the hour. After their notice expired. I was knocking on the chairman's grand front door. The look on his face when he saw me, a mixture of surprise and annoyance. I handed him 2 documents to sign for. The first was a notice of my intent to build a new home on my HOA property. His face was a mass of confusion. "But you already have a house," he stammered. I didn't answer. I just pointed to the second document, a formal notice to vacate. They had 30 days to remove every single thing they owned from my land. Their guard shack, their boom gate mechanism, their sign, everything. I turned and walked away without another word, leaving him sputtering on his pristine doorstep. The next morning, their lawyer called. I could hear the arrogant smirk in his voice. "That land isn't used. Our contract allows us to use and use portions for the common good. Your spiteful building project won't hold up in court." I let the silence hang for a moment. Then my voice was quiet, steady. "The property in question," I said, "is vacant land. It has no house. It is exactly large enough to build one small home and nothing more. There is no room for your and use portion. Now, go pull the property records. Then call me back." The 5 days of silence that followed were the most peaceful I'd had in years. When they finally crawled back, the tone had changed. There were offers of lunch. No thanks. Offers of negotiation. No thanks. They were panicking. With 9 days left on their clock, I met with their new lawyer. A paralegal they'd sent to lowball me. I was ready. I slid my new easement agreement across the table. Veto power over his entire HOA. The paralegal later told me he'd tried to warn him, but the chairman had told him to shut up and just get it signed. He was so sure of his own superiority. He didn't even bother to read the monster he was creating. It took 6 months for the full weight of his stupidity to crush him. Their real lawyers finally read the contract and had a meltdown. They couldn't sue me without bankrupting themselves paying my legal bills. They were trapped. We ended up in mediation. And I learned the beautiful, final piece of the puzzle. That security booth on my land, it wasn't just for show. All the wiring for the entire neighborhood security cameras ran through it. Their gated community status was entirely dependent on my little patch of land. Without my easement, their HOA would legally dissolve. The chairman was forced to sit in that room as his own lawyers explained how completely he had doomed them. In the end, to save the HOA from total financial ruin, I offered a small amendment. He would be personally liable for my legal fees, not the HOA, unless he resigned from the HOA entirely. He resigned on the spot. As he stood to leave, I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You should really read the fine print before you sign something." The look on his face, it was worth every penny, every moment of anguish. I found out later the HOA sued him to recover the massive financial losses his vendetta caused. He sold his house and left the country. I never did find out why he hated me so much. Maybe he just needed a target for his bullying. And the revenge? It's the gift that keeps on giving. Just recently, I built a truly ugly dog pool right by the entrance. They had to politely ask me to fix it in a mediation meeting. I handed them a copy of the contract, highlighting their clause to maintain my property to HOA standards. They're currently paying to have it rebuilt for me. Their lawyers didn't even bother to show up. They say living well is the best revenge. I disagree. Living well, while your bully is forced to pay you a small fortune every month for the privilege of existing, that's the best revenge. It's a lesson in the dangers of unchecked arrogance and the beautiful power of a well-placed loophole. If you felt that thrill of justice right down to your bones, do me a favor. Hit that like button and let me know in the comments what's the most petty, well-deserved revenge you've ever witnessed. And subscribe for more stories about the underdogs who fight back and win. Thanks for watching.